Hello and welcome to the Crafty Pint Podcast. I'm Will.
I'm James, and both of us appear to have our voices back after last week's somewhat croaky affair, which is, it's good for the podcast, less good for people that hang around with me, have to listen to me yammering away, but also some sort of, I guess, a bit of a positive update on the back of one of the stories we discussed in the intro last week as well.
Yeah, Last Man Standing Brewery has taken over the site that Newstead left just last week. So this followed on a couple of days from it. Obviously, as people in the comments said, I think we made note of, it's a pretty interesting turn of events, not least because of the name Last Man Standing is a reference to one of its co-owners, Stephen Bradbury, who famously won a gold medal at the Winter Olympics when everyone in front of him fell over.
Yeah,
and
one of the great Olympic moments of all time, I think.
Yeah. So Newstead's collapsed and they've come in straight away. At the same time, the team were very keen to talk about it as a positive story because they've managed to keep the site running. Like they've literally come in. It's barely been shut. So it's good to see that it continue on as a brewery.
Yeah, it's continuing on as a venue. They're going to add their sort of own branding and touches over the coming weeks. I think not all the staff are continuing on from Newstead onto Last Man Standing though, so there is that sort of unfortunate side to things as well. I think often when there's been sort of VAs and stuff like that in the past, obviously they've tried to keep all the staff on. Yeah. My understanding is that won't be happening in the case of everybody here. But at the same time, it's Newstead have put so much, I guess, time and money and effort into that site over the years, pre all the disasters they had to face and post as well. And it is a prominent site. It is a big venue. It is somewhere to introduce people going to Suncorp Stadium to non-4X beer or whatever.
And they're a very sports-focused brewery as well, so it might work very well for them. Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see what they do as well, because as things stand, they only had a couple of beers on the market. I can't imagine they're going to want to fill all 20 taps in the tap room with the same two beers. I think they'll be putting on some other local breweries' beers, so it'll be interesting to see what the tap lineup looks like there. But I guess it's still a case of watch this space, even though the space between one closing and another announcing they were coming in was a matter of days.
And turning to more celebratory news, Nail are turning 25 this month, or celebrating it this month.
I'm glad you said celebratory because it's a word I struggle with. But John Stallwood released the first Nail Ale. I think he was brewing at Bobby Dazzler's brew pub back at the time in 2000. One of very few independent breweries from that stage still to be operating under their own steam. We celebrated Holgate last year. John's got a remarkable story, one that we've told a couple of times over the years. Guy Southern's done another interview with him last month, sort of looking back on the 25 years, discussing a lot of the issues that he was sort of, I guess, on the front foot about many, many years ago when he used to run microbrewing.com.au. That's almost like precursor to the Crafty Pint in a way. Discussing, the excise tax, tap contracts, those sort of issues as well, but also reflecting on 25 years, well, it wouldn't be 25 years, but a number of years of Clout Stout. He's got some new vintages of that sort of iconic Imperial Stout coming out. One of the beer industry's great survivors, but also one of the beer industry's great advocates and supporters. If anyone hasn't met John, he is a very special, very unique character, but someone who really holds the craft beer industry, the independent brewing industry, very close to his heart. I remember when I was actually first putting the concept for Crafty Pint together, I wasn't aware that he was running this microbrewery.com.au website. Found out he was, and I was like, and then I found out he was this legend in the WA beer industry, and I'm like, I don't want to be stepping on anyone's toes. Like, I feel kind of bad that I'm coming in and doing this, but too far down the road to not do it. And I got a contact for John from Al Carragher, the Feral co-founder now at the Great Northern and Slumdog Brewing, and got in touch with John, and he was like, anybody that wants to do anything at all to help support this industry, I'm 100% behind. And I was like, that was a real sort of weight off my shoulder. So, happy 25th to John and the Nail team. I believe there's some new beers coming out, sort of one-offs and some new sort of cool range beers. So we'll find out about those soon. And I'm sure there'll be a few Clout Stouts either already being consumed or being consumed over the coming days.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear him talk a little bit about the possibility of a brew pub as well. They've got Billabong, but that's sort of distinct. I remember when he took over Billabong, John told me that he has this vision for the Nail brew pub that he won't tell anyone about, but it's like so locked in his head, he wants it to happen. He needs a lot of money.
Yeah. Oh, and I'd love, to try and make sense of anything in John's head, to be honest, would be a challenge for somebody. But, it'd be great to see. I think it is a classic WA brand. And even though they might not be known as well sort of outside WA, you go around, you'll find, there'll be creatures and gauge rows for all the, ferals everywhere. But generally, you'll find a lot of nail taps out there because he's got the runs on the board, and there's been so many iconic beers, from Nail Red, one of the great hoppy red ales, VPA. It really is this sort of well loved and well supported WA brand. So yeah, it'd be amazing if it got a home of its own properly for once. Yes, congratulations to John and the team. We'll see them for a beer at some point in the coming weeks or months, no doubt.
Speaking of incredible brewery stories, we're always looking for shout-outs for Bluestone's Brewery of the Month. We had a great run last month. I know Cypher were absolutely stoked with it. I know I've said that a few times, but if you want to make the sort of special brewery in your life feel great, then make sure you put their name down as
Sounds
Brewery
like
of the Month.
Valentine's Day pitch from some sort of Hallmark cards or something. No, exactly, yeah. I think it'd be great to, especially at a time like this when breweries and hops, everyone in the beer industry, or most people in the beer industry, certainly doing it tough. I think, a bit of recognition goes a long way. So if you'd like to, put a spring in the step, fire Cupid's arrow to continue Will's theme to your local brewers, just jump online at craftypint.com/bluestone, which is BLUESTONE. Very short nomination form there. We'd love to hear who you're enjoying around the country. And I guess in a similar vein, our Rallings, Have You Done a Rallings campaign celebrating good beer citizens. So this could be anyone could be someone at a brewery, could be anyone in the beer industry at all who's doing something awesome in the beer industry, deserves a bit of recognition, deserves a bit of a shout out. They will win a voucher from Rallings, labels, stickers, and also featured on our website, featured on socials as well. And to nominate your good beer citizens, just head to craftypint.com/rallings, RALLINGS. And I guess also something else that we're involved in, which we launched the launch part 1 last week. Pint of Origin Festival will be returning in May. One of the survivors of the ongoing turmoil facing sort of, the major event space is back from May the 8th to 19th.
Yeah, can't wait. It's always my favourite time of year. I was visiting one of the venues just ahead of the announcement last week, and I won't say who it was, but their birthday falls during Pint of Origin, and they were like, not just because it's my birthday, it's my favourite time of year. And they have to work it as well, but they love the festival so much that they can't wait.
Yeah, and to anyone that doesn't know what Pint of Origin is, it started out in the second Good Beer Week 2012. I guess it was a individual stream within Good Beer Week. The idea was to have a venue that would represent each of the Australian states and territories. Brewers just sent a keg over or whatever and showcase of WA beers, Queensland beers, what have you. Really took off, became a festival on its own a few years ago. This year we have 23 host venues, a lot of familiar faces, a few new ones, and as well as having sort of brewers from every Australian state and territory, as well as the USA, UK, etc. We also have the return of the Boilermaker Hub at Whiskey and Ailment, so they're going to be pairing various whiskies from different parts of the world with beers from that part of the world, and our first beer cocktails hub at Captain Melville in the CBD as well. So at the minute it's just the basic venue lineup announcement, so you can find that at pintoforigin.com, and in a few weeks time in early April we'll put the full programme live with all the breweries that are going to be appearing, pop-up events, all the stuff you can expect, grab your passports, etc, etc. So yeah, should be a lot of fun. That's the 13th. Pint of Origin is now a teenager, Will.
Yeah, great
time. It makes me feel old.
Great time for people in Melbourne, but also for everyone outside of Melbourne who wants to visit the city. It's perfect time to visit.
And to be honest, and we've been pretty lucky all through Good Beer Week and Pint of Origin. We've actually been pretty blessed because generally it's sort of like late May. We seem to get a nice little spell of weather around that time of year as well. So touch wood, we'll get that again. And I guess maintaining the festival theme, before that, you and I will be at another beer festival within a couple of days.
Yeah, the High Country Hop. It's awesome to be back there. We'll see a lot of industry listeners, hopefully, at the Technical Symposium, which is on Friday, so just after this episode goes out, and then the main festival day on Saturday, so it'll be great to catch up with a lot of people.
Yeah, no, you and I'll be doing a bit of emceeing at the symposium, and then, the festival was a great music lineup, great beers, weather forecast is pretty warm and dry for the weekend in Beechworth. So, and my mum and dad will be there as well. My dad will just be staked out in the ice cream store eating boysenberry ice cream all weekend, but mum will probably come and check some beers, hopefully. Which brings us to this week's, I was about to say main interviews. This was from yours and Craig's time in Hobart.
Yeah, it's a very different episode, so it's sort of in 3 parts, a bit of a mini-series take on things. There were so many good chats down at the convention that we thought we'd sort of piece a few of them together and kind of give people, I guess, a taste of what the convention is and why we were there and why brewers from around the globe go. And so first up, we're going to hear from Tom Shelston, who's the CEO of CIBD, and Dr. Megan Sheehy, who's the president of CIBD. Good explainer of what CIBD is, why there's now a C before IBD, which I've continued to get wrong, and I think I get wrong a few times in maybe some of those chats. So that'll give you a bit more of an understanding of what it is. And,
good to get your weekly apology in there, Will.
yeah. One week I need to do that. And then you'll hear Craig and I chat with Carlos Ruz, who's the Chief Sales Officer at HVG. It might not be a familiar name to many listeners. It certainly wasn't to me, but they're a major German hop grower cooperative. Carlos, as the name suggests, isn't actually originally from Germany. He's from Venezuela. It was a really good chat. So obviously we talk a lot in the Crafty Pint about lagers and lager renaissance and kind of hope we wish this thing into being. And so it's really interesting to hear Carlos talk about his love for traditional German hops and also working more closely with craft brewers in Australia and New Zealand and America, which have their own hop industries, and how he's connected with them. It was his first time on a podcast, and he's never listened to a podcast either, so it was a very fresh experience.
Hopefully
with
not first and last.
No. I think he killed it. He's a really great guest.
No, I mean, as you might listen to it, I've never listened to another one again.
Oh, that's a possibility. Who wants to hear their own voice back, really? It's a curse. So yeah, it's a really great chat with Carlos. And then finally, we wanted to grab one of the local breweries that were at the conference. So we got Tim Bishop, who's one of the co-founders and the head brewer at Easy Tiger, which is one of the more unusual or unique new small breweries.
Yes, it's way more than a brewery, isn't it? It's like there's
it's an everything. Yeah. So it's based in St. Helens, which is on the northeast coast of Tassie. If anyone's ever been to that part of the world, it's stunning. Bay of Fires is, I mean, literally Australian tourism called it Australia's best beach this year. It's a beautiful part of Tasmania. And they've built this, it's open from 8 a.m. every day. It's a cafe, restaurant, cinema, and a brewery all in one. So
I think they're missing a water slide that actually brings you in, deposits you at the bar. I think would be the final touch.
I kind of felt, having met Tim, it's probably best not to give him ideas. But yeah, so Tim actually, he worked at Bogues years and years ago, and he's been working more recently on the supply side of the industry, but he sort of has been pulled back into breweries by these other co-founders, sort of groups of locals who wanted... the way Tim tells it is they tried to convince... They went to him and asking for him to convince them why they shouldn't start a brewery, and he ended up coming in on board as a founder. So yeah, the chat with Tim, it's about what he was doing there, but also the experience of running Easy Tiger, which is definitely... it would be good to get them on for a full chat at some point in the future, I think.
Okay, so we've got those 3 chats coming after the break. Before we get there, Will?
If you enjoy the episode or the podcast in general, be sure to like, subscribe, and review us. Cheers.
Cheers.
All aboard! Get ready to travel the world of beer at 22 pubs, bars and breweries across Melbourne this May. Next stop, Pint of Origin Festival. Visit pintoforigin.com.
Tom and Megan, welcome to the Crafty Pint podcast.
Thank
Nice
you.
to be here.
It's great to be here.
Guys, you're here representing the Chartered Institute of Brewers and Distillers. For those who aren't familiar with CIBD, give me the story in a nutshell. What's the organisation about? What are the main aims of what you do?
Tom, I'll let you answer that one.
Yeah, okay. So we basically provide all the kind of technical and scientific education for brewers. So there's two sides for brewers and distillers. There's two sides really to the organisation. There's our formal qualifications, and so if somebody comes into the industry, then we've got a ladder of qualifications that people can take to get up to a kind of master brewer level. And we've done some quite interesting kind of research recently, and 75% of those qualifications are taken in the first 10 years of somebody's career. So the second part of the equation is what happens for the remaining 30 years. And so what we try and do is provide a lifetime of learning. So, we're in an industry that changes on a kind of, all industries are changing all of the time. And so it's our job to keep ahead of that and then understand what the needs of the employees are, what the needs of the employers are, and what the needs of the members are, and kind of get ahead of that and provide them with that technical and scientific content and learning.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, great. And Megan, do you want to tell us a bit about your own relationship with IBD and then CIBD?
Yes, well, my journey started many years ago with the CIBD. In fact, my first conference was here in Hobart back in 2006, which I have fantastic memories of. So I'm even more excited to be here in my capacity as president this time around, having started my journey of the first conference and my real involvement with the CIBD back here in Hobart in 2006. So over those years, my involvement has been on various local committees and attending regional meetings and conferences, but then I became involved with became a member, director on the Asia Pacific section board of management, and was chair of that board as well. And now obviously I've moved on to being part of the global board of directors, so a trustee. It's a charitable organisation based in the UK, but obviously a global organisation, and I'm currently holding the role of president of the institute and technically the first president of the Chartered Institute, becoming chartered on the 1st of January, and also the fourth female president of the Institute in its history and the first female president for the Asia Pacific region. So it's an incredible honour.
Yeah, congratulations. That's
I
fantastic.
think what's really unique about the CIBD is its network that it draws upon, and it's a kind of global organisation. It's just incredible that here we are in Hobart, and we've had people come from Edinburgh, from California, from all four corners, and at this, people keep coming back to the CIBD. So at this conference, we've got 6 past presidents from New Zealand, Scotland, America, Australia. It's just the network is what makes the CIBD really special.
When was it founded? Like, how far back does the history go?
Well, the Laboratory Club was where it all started in London in 1886. If I got that year right, yes. So 1886 was where it started, with a group of technical brewers essentially sitting down talking about technical challenges, I imagine, and essentially the organisation grew from there to where we are today. There's been a couple of name changes along the way, and going from being only brewing to bringing in the distilling industry as well. So there's been a number of significant milestones along that journey, and now becoming chartered is adding another immense milestone to that.
We're just custodians. And
Yes.
I think
That's right.
We just have to, everyone's job is just to carefully modernise the CIBD, leave it in a slightly better place than it was before. That's the task, to just keep pushing the kind of the standards and do our best to kind of carry that legacy forward.
You've mentioned the chartered status. I'd love to learn more about that. What did it take to get to that point, and what does it mean for IBD alumni and so forth?
Well, I think chartered status it sets a kind of quality benchmark that we have to hold ourselves to, and also our members are held to, in the same way that other chartered organisations. So you've got engineers, you've got accountants, you've got surveyors, you've got people like that. So what we've had to do is apply for this chartership status. We're assessed by various kind of UK governmental bodies, and then they say, yes, we recognise your importance as an industry, we recognise your importance as an organisation and your credibility within that. These are the, you will set the standards, but we will monitor that you are maintaining those standards. And what it does is it gives an employer the sense of confidence that if somebody has that CIBD status, that they have been through an education that is trusted, expert, and will allow them to kind of function capably within their roles. And then if you're an employee, it gives you a real kind of reference mark in terms of the quality of the kind of training that you've had. So it should be a win-win, but essentially it's about providing that globally recognised mark of quality that that represents what the CIBD is about. And then from an organisational perspective, it means that we have to continually push ourselves to maintain those levels and those standards.
And I think it's also about, we have always had that element of continuing professional development as part of our organisation, but this is giving us the opportunity to really expand that and to focus on it a bit more, because as Tom said, it's not just about the qualification. People may be members for their whole working life if they stay in the industry that long. So what's after these qualifications? And there are short courses that are being developed. There's technical presentations. I mean, now we have the technology to globally stream webinars and all sorts of things. And the networking, the discussions that happen this week, the younger and newer members of the industry that can access, people like Professor Catherine Smart, Professor Charlie Bamforth, that have this wealth of knowledge, but are also people that are happy to sit down and have a conversation and to share knowledge and to help somebody learn and grow in their career. So there's so many different elements beyond just sitting an exam that we are fostering, I suppose you would say, within the CIBD, and what we're trying to now evolve and continue to create as part of a chartered organisation.
Yeah, it's definitely something you see, particularly when you hear, I ran into a head brewer in the hotel lobby and I saw they were like, grab someone, were like, I just need to pick your brain about this tonight, like I need to grab you on that. And that's conversation that wouldn't happen because they do live in very different countries. Like it's the only way to see that really is by having everyone together like this.
Yeah, and I think the theme of the conference is about adaptability, because the industry's changing. The industry's got some fairly significant economic headwinds blowing against it. And so that involves people being resilient, learning about new things, sharing ideas, gaining insights from other people. So that's, again, it's the power of this network that comes together to, this. We've got over 400 delegates who've come here, and it's a huge commitment. So, every decision matters at the moment, and they're coming here for, it's a week, isn't it? They're going to, brewers and distillers are busy people anyway. So, for people to recognise the value in what they will learn from these 3 or 4 pack days is just a testament to the guys who set this up.
Well, let's talk more just about the themes and so on of the conference. You mentioned resilience and adaptability. Will and I, we're here today recording at the 38th Biennial Convention, Asia Pacific, IBD Asia Pacific. I've been blown away by some of the presentations so far, the level of technical expertise and insights and data coming through. What else are you hoping? What else are you hoping that the conference will really reveal, and why should people be marking it down in 2 years' time to make sure they're here?
For me, I think it's the breadth of material and the experts that we have access to. I mean, you've mentioned a couple of the themes. Sustainability. Sustainability goes across everything about having a sustainable business, having sustainable education. It's not just about the environmental aspects. It comes across every element of a business, and it's something that is going to continue to be an integral part of education for new dynamic, agile workforces need to understand all of these things. So that's one key theme that is here prominently this week and will be in the future. And in fact, obviously it's not here in Australia, but in Nottingham in the UK, we're running a sustainability conference dedicated purely to that theme for brewers and distillers, and there will certainly be material available online that people will be able to access for that. But and I think the opportunity to go from talking about packaging and marketing your brand to highly technical presentations on yeast and hop genetics, and I think is that there's something for everyone. I think, in fact, for me this afternoon, it's like where to go. There's zero to low alcohol production and sustainability, I think, on at the same time. And you can't please everybody, of course, but it's an impossible choice. So I think that's a good problem to have, in that there's such a range of different topics going from really technical. I think people can participate at any level. You don't have to be a PhD trained scientist to attend the convention. There's lots of different layers and levels of information being shared.
I mean, for me, it's also a great chance for us to listen, because we have to listen and then we have to act. So we've got 400 plus people who are right at the front, right at the sharp end of what's going on, and that gives us an incredible learning opportunity. So we can think about, okay, if we're going to deliver on the promise of chartership, these are the guys who will tell us what that looks like, what would be relevant for them. And I think also it's not just the kind of program, there's an exhibition, and the ecosystem of partners right the way through from grain to glass is just phenomenal, and every conversation gives you an insight into how that all fits together.
Fantastic. Well, really appreciate that insight into CIBD now. No, I've got to get IBD out of my head. And
no, we all do that.
We're all having that challenge.
You get fined if you say IBD. You have to kind of put a couple of bucks into
the swear jar. You put
put a couple of bucks into. But it's funny. Last night I sent my wife a picture of myself presenting, and she goes, on the screen it says IBD behind you, and I'm like, oh, you're kidding. So she's good.
We'll get there. Yeah. But thank you so much for joining us, and really appreciate that
welcome.
insight.
Right, thank you very
You're
much.
welcome.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks
as
for
well.
the opportunity.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hello and welcome to Bintani Brewery Boosters. I'm here with Sam Bethune, technical sales guru for Bintani, who've been long-term supporters of the Crafty Pint. Sam, you're here to, I guess, give us and give brewers some tips on how to run more sustainable, more efficient breweries. This week we're sort of focusing on brew how efficiency. I guess starting at the start, what are the simplest first steps brewers can take to make their brewery more efficient?
So I think at the start, we talk about brewhouse efficiency. If you don't know what it is, look it up to start. But knowing what you know and what you don't know, for me, that all comes back to calibration. In the brewhouse, there's a lot of things that are important, particularly pH, temperature, time, that sort of thing. We've all got pretty accurate watches, but definitely make sure your pH meters are calibrated regularly, your temperature probes in your various vessels, your flow meters are reading what they should be. You might think you're doing the right thing, but if you're not checking that data is accurate, you're setting yourself up for trouble.
And why is that? So why is that going to either cost time or money down the line?
So definitely for pH in the mash, for example, being too high or too low can have a big difference on your extract efficiency later on through your lautering steps. In the same way, temperature of your mash, you might be hitting particular temperatures to extract the right amount of sugars from your grain and that sort of thing. A degree or two too high and low can add those percentages in that you're going to miss out on at the outside of the brew house. Another good thing in there is always to taste your spent grain and malt and be measuring your final extracts. If you're not doing that, or your malt tastes sweet after it's come out of the lauter tun, then a few things to look at.
Okay, and at the other end of the scale with malts, tell us about the importance of mill gaps in, I guess, maximising efficiency in the brewery.
The real sexy topic of mill gaps. So malt has a general sort of size, different suppliers, different supply regions, different grains are all a little bit different. Generally, on a small scale, we keep our mills the same and don't worry about it too much. In the same way as some of the brewhouse side, that gap can determine whether we've got the right crush of our grist. Too coarse, we're not going to get the extract out. We're paying for the potential sugar that's being left behind. On the other side, we crush it too finely. We have lautering problems. We get too much polyphenol. We get haze issues and that sort of thing as well. So particularly year on year, or if there's any change in supplier, be it through the distributor or wherever else, make sure you have a look at that grist. Even an eye and visual, or having a look at your lautering times can really help you know whether that needs to be adjusted.
Okay, and I guess for brewers and for drinkers alike, they get excited about the latest hop variety, talking about flavour and aroma. But I guess this focus on data, on sort of the boring numbers, like it is important in running a successful, sustainable brewing business.
Massively, particularly with numbers in the brewhouse side. If you've got multiple brewers or shifts, or writing down and trying to figure out what's gone wrong or right in a particular brew, making sure you've got your times and temperatures validated. All those little points that you put in on your brew sheet that you think are important, if they're not needed, take them out, but if they are needed, make sure you check it between brewers and that there's consistency there. At a brewhouse level, that can be that difference between timing and making sure each beer's out the way it should be.
There you go. Excellent. Well, and if anyone wants to pick your brains a bit more, how can they sort of find you, or find out, I guess, some tips about running a more efficient brewery?
So more than welcome to hit us up at Bintani. Just general sales at bintani.com.au will make its way to me very quickly. Otherwise, all great resources online. We've all got the internet at the moment, and plenty of good places to start.
Awesome. No, thank you for that.
Thanks very much.
Cheers.
Carlos, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
It's our pleasure. You've come a long way to be here, so do you want to tell us a little bit about HVG and also your role there?
Yes, certainly. Thank you very much for the invitation. For me, it's a big pleasure after being all my life dealing with beer and hops. To be the first time in Australia is for me really something very exciting to get to know the brewing market, the hop cultivation in Australia. Very beautiful. As to myself, as you see from my name, it's not very typical Bavarian, Carlos Ruiz. I am originally from Venezuela, and I started my brewing career in Venezuela at the Cervecera Nacional when I was 17. So I have been always somehow linked with beer. I studied brewing science in Weihenstephan, and I returned to work in Venezuela and in Brazil for a couple of years before the cooperative HVG re-imported me back to Germany, and I have been there for 29 years now. I was appointed last year as Chief Sales Officer, so I'm one of the 3 board members. And what we do at HVG has a very unique constellation. Maybe the name is not so popular here in Australia because you have your own hops. You have 4 hop growing families. We have in Germany over 1,000.
Wow.
So Germany is the largest hop growing country in the world. We have been growing hops we can trace it back 1,200 years. So hops and beer have always been very, very, very interconnected. The history, we could spend hours seeing why hops became so relevant in beer. As the listeners from your podcast certainly know, hops was not the paramount spice in beer. It had to fight its way against other herbs and spices. But in 1516, when the German Reinheitsgebot was declared, and it was specified that to brew beer you have to use barley and hops and water and nothing else, that's where you can really say, okay, hops starting there really took the place and displaced all other stuff that was used in the Grut that was used for spicing. So as to HVG, as I said, we are very unique in the sense that all the families from the hop regions of the Hallertau, Tettnang, and Elbe Saale in Germany are members and owners of our company. However, they are not obligated to sell their products only to their own company, to HVG. So we are marketing, depending on the year, around 1/3 of the German hops is exported, but also stayed in Germany through the cooperative. The growers are entitled or allowed to sell their production to whoever knocks at their door. So we have a variety of other hop merchants that also trade with German hops. So we have like a double role. On one side, we do a lot of promotion and we are very focused on German hops, whereas the rest of the traders are normally dealing with hops from all the proveniences. So our view, again, in that sense, I think is very unique because we take a different approach. We go to the breweries and ask, okay, you see from our portfolio of 45 different varieties, what kind of beer are you making and what is the answer in terms of hop varieties? Then comes the second step, which is which products do you make out of these hops? Germany traditionally, also due to the Reinheitsgebot, is not producing in a large scale chemically modified hop products. So our philosophy is as close to nature as possible. In that sense, I would say also we are very special because we know the attributes of the hops and we study. We have in 1999 we started our own research brewery that we share with the Bart Haas group in St. Johann. In the 80s, the hop growers decided to invest in hop production. So the largest hop processing facilities that exist, which is the Hopfenveredlung St. Johann, the hop growers are directly owners with 40% capital share. So we have the ownership and the varieties and the processing. We take care of marketing for HVG as a company, but again, everything we do whenever someone around the world buys German hops, it is beneficial for our hop growers. So we do a lot of marketing of which everybody who is marketing German hops also benefits. In that, more or less in short words.
Yeah, thank you. And I mean, listeners will know Tettnang and Hallertau because of the varieties, I think. But can you give us a sense of how many different varieties you're growing, or the families are growing, rather?
Yes, certainly. The varieties we have now. If I was a brewer today, I would feel overwhelmed if you see the list of varieties from the International Hop Growers Convention. You have over 340 different hop varieties. When I started brewing 100 years ago, there were just a handful of varieties that you could choose from. The development has gone very, very, very quick. Initially, those varieties that we call noble hops, which are these varieties that historically, through some kind, let's call it some kind of Darwinian survival of the most flavorful, released these special varieties that were linked to the hop growing region. So you had in Bohemia, you had the varieties of what we call the Saaz circle of varieties, which are these Farnesen-rich varieties, like Saaz, Tettnang, Spalt, Lublin. So these are varieties that their distinction is this very high Farnesen content that you seldom find in other varieties. In the Hallertau, you had the Hallertauer Mittelfrühe, which is the variety that originated there. And you had in the region of Hersbruck, at the northern part, you had the Hersbrucker. So basically in that part, and the Hersbrucker and the Strisselspalter in France are related as well. But that was it. You had these Saaz circle varieties, Spalter, Tettnanger, Lublin and Saaz. You had the Hallertauer Mittelfrühe, you had the Hersbrucker and the Strisselspalt. And when in Great Britain was really where after the Second World War a lot of breeding took place in order to increase the resin content. So typical for all these varieties is they have somewhere between 2 and 4% of alpha acid. So you can imagine when the first varieties like Brewer's Gold was released with 6% of alpha, or Northern Brewer with 8%, it was like, wow, you're doubling the alpha acid content. These varieties were very quickly imported to the mainland, to Germany, and a race of breeding started with different, with different goals. One of the goals was to mimic the original varieties with new, improved agronomical performance. So you have the daughters, for instance, of the Hallertauer Mittelfrühe, which is Hallertauer Tradition, the Spalter Select, that is the daughter of the Spalter hops. And in that sense, the intention was always trying to get varieties that have this noble characteristic, but with improved agronomical conditions. And so with the passing of time, the varieties became more and more. So you had these noble varieties, then you had what you would call the after breedings of the noble varieties, then you have the aroma hops. For instance, Perle. Perle is a daughter of Northern Brewer crossed with a German variety. And Perle became very, very prominent in the hop landscape in Germany. So you had these varieties. What we used to call bitter hops was improved strongly when Magnum came into being, and all these. Maybe let me make a step back. All this breeding started in around 1927. There was a big fungal epidemics that almost eradicated all the hops in the Hallertau. So the brewers, the hop merchants, and the hop growers came together to found the Hop Research Institute. That is known as the Hüll Institute. So Hüll is world famous and has a very, very strong support from the Bavarian State Ministry, and is actually the craftsman of the varietal development in Germany. So in that sense, the hop breeding in Germany is also very unique because we have a lot of support and backup from the science that comes from the knowledge of the governmental institutions. So Hüll started releasing all these varieties, and until now there are some private breeding programs. HVG has one as well, but very humble in comparison to what Hüll does. It's actually something we inherited from a very ingenious and creative hop grower that was doing his own breeding program. And he decided to give it to the fortune or to the benefit of all the hop growers to say, okay, HVG, you take care now of my breeding program because I want to keep these varieties alive. So the situation in Germany is different than in the United States, for instance, or here with the proprietary varieties. So all our growers have access to cultivate all the varieties. Even the variety Hercules, the variety rights belong to HVG, so we bought the variety from the Hop Research Institute. But the variety is released and free to be cultivated by all the hop growers in Germany. So in that sense, this is one of the ways how we as HVG promote the hop cultivation in Germany.
Yeah, wow. I have to say, Carlos, I could listen to you speak the names of German hops and towns for the rest of the day. It's just, it's quite magical.
I've just realised how many I've been getting wrong for my whole writing career. I've been mispronouncing these hops for years and years and years.
Carlos, so we're here at CIBD 2025, your first time in Australia, delivering obviously the good word of German hops and so forth. What's your aim of being at this conference? Are you hoping to promote more sales of German hops to Australian brewers, to learn from the industry here? What do you hope to achieve this week at the conference?
Yes, I have to say that probably due to HVG has a strong footprint in Asia altogether. So it's not like this is totally uncharted territory for us. But Australia itself, due to their own hop production, and if you see the statistics, the export of German hops to Australia has been, it's there, but it's not certainly. So you have your own hop region, you have the fantastic cultivation of hops in New Zealand around the corner, and with the explosion of the craft brewing industry, that went hand in hand with American varieties, and that is something that we have been trying to promote also a little bit, our varieties for the craft brewing industry. I think we have beautiful hops also for that segment. In terms of varieties, there is no other region that has such a full spectrum of varieties, from really the most noble hops to very, very high flavor and unique characteristics. However, I have to say, I thought our craft brewers who claim to think outside of the box are very reluctant to experiment, for instance, with a Kalista or a Mandarina Bavaria for designing new beers, because somehow everything IPA is related either to flavor varieties here from Australia or from New Zealand, or to American varieties. So coming back to your question, why I'm here, this offered very unique opportunities on one side. We know that the market for craft brewers all around the world is suffering. So the bonanza time when everything was growing and price didn't matter and the cost pressure was not so present, those times are gone. So we see that there is more acceptance of the brewers to think about alternatives also coming from Germany, because since they are not proprietary, they are cheaper. So you can, sometimes the pain threshold has to be reached to promote these improvements. I think many creative brewers understand that also, that many of those trends also in the craft brewing industry are coming from the United States. At the end of the day, you have this 13% of specialty market in the craft beer segment, but there is then an untapped 87% of lager market that offers a certain potential for good crafted lager beers. And so this is actually where we perform best, where our varieties really can play their attributes at best. So we see a lot of change in thinking, and many of the craft brewers are thinking about lagers, and we have a lot of expertise and a lot of support to give. So part of my visit is also here to understand a little bit better how these 650 different craft brewers here see this opportunity, maybe we have not made ourselves aware with our varieties. As you say, you have been doing this for such a long time, but there are still a lot of gaps or misunderstandings about European hops. So if we can contribute and try to work out a strategy together with our friends from Bintani on how to at least create the awareness and offer the possibilities, and see if the brewers here are keen also to ride this wave of lagers. So we created a T-shirt for the last Craft Brewers Conference in Las Vegas, and it said, lager is the new IPA. We thought, okay, they're going to give us hell in the United States, and most of the brewers said, yeah, you're right, that's the way to go. So yes, and you see the facts speak deliver a clear message. You see the entries in the World Beer Cup, and those that have the highest increment are the lager beers and the Pilsner style beers. So this is something that where we perform best. And I would say also a third reason why it was for me so important to be present at this conference was also to understand a little bit better how the hop production works here in the Southern Hemisphere. Because there, at least from what I saw on the fields, there are clear differences when it comes to hop production.
Yeah, wow.
Carlos, this is a real question without notice, but do you have a favourite hop?
Yes.
Are you willing to say what it is?
Well, let's say so. Hersbrucker is the variety. There are a couple of beers where Hersbrucker is used, and the classic flavor, this hop fruitiness that it has, and this noble character, make beers very, very, very drinkable. And our brewmaster of the research brewery, Andreas Gahr, he always makes for Christmas a Hella Bock, a pale bock that is just bittered with Hersbrucker. And I'm longing all the year for Christmas to arrive so that Andy makes his Hersbrucker bock. I have to say I have become a big fan of Kalista, because Kalista is very unique in the sense that it has a very, let's say, a classic alpha acid content, so to say, and a very high oil content. So you don't need to, let's say, when you're using the special flavor hops from the United States, you are buying this oil content, but these are hops that usually in the past would have been classified as bitter hops because they have 13, 14, 15% of alpha acid. So, and Kalista has around 3% of alpha acid, but has more than 2 milliliters of oil, so you can make very, very, very pleasant dry hoppings with that. And the flavor is very tropical, very fruity, very unique. So I encourage everyone who has not tried Kalista and is in that segment of special flavored beers to give it a try. It's a very good alternative.
Yes, and before we let you go, we have to mention that you brought us a present, and I'd love to know more about what's sitting in front of you on the table, because I've never seen a drink like it before.
This program is sponsored by Hallertauer Hopfengold from Meinberg. This is actually a chocolatier and a specialty shop that does this, has started doing this. Hallertauer Hopfengold, well, not started, at least 2 decades, if I don't recall bad. It has 56% of alcohol. So in cold Hallertau winters, it keeps you warm. And we like to say that it's a little bit of medicine because it contains a very subtle, very tasty. I will be delighted to hear what you say. Drink it a little bit cold, and you will you will feel how the hops and you become one.
Fantastic. You did say before you could either use it as rubbing alcohol or drinking.
You can also use it for rubbing when you have a muscle ache.
You don't say about too many things. Carlos, thank you so much for joining us. We'll go have a sip of that now.
Okay, thanks for having me.
Tim, welcome to the Crafty Pint, mate. Pleasure to have you here. I've heard nothing but good things about Easy Tiger. I want to talk about that, or about the venue, the madness that sort of is. But I'd love for you to just set the scene for me first. Take me to St. Helens, where you're located in Tasmania, and kind of paint me the picture of what that town's like.
Yeah, awesome. Great to talk to you guys. It's fantastic. And fantastic to be here at the CIBD 2025 conference too. It's absolutely awesome. Yeah, St. Helens, absolutely fantastic place. It's the biggest town on the northeast coast of Tassie. Absolutely awesome beaches, world-class beaches. There, some of the fantastic fishing that you see great fresh seafood from Tasmania. A lot of it comes from the east coast of Tassie. You've got mountain bike trails up there. There's a lot of things for people to do. It's a little bit of a secret, I guess, in a Tasmanian perspective, but we want to open this whole place up and make sure that St. Helens isn't just a sleepy little town, and it's vibrant. There's lots of stuff going on in there. We want it open for business. We want other businesses to do really well on the northeast coast of Tassie, because you hear a lot about towns further south, Bicheno, Freycinet, and Coles Bay. They're great places, absolutely. Let's push it a little bit further north in Tassie, get things happening up the north end of the state, and this is what we're all about.
I've actually had a friend of mine move recently from the Sunshine Coast to St. Helens, and
awesome.
She's a musician, a singer, and performer, and I think she said that she immediately felt at home in St. Helens. It's a real creative kind of community. Is that the vibe you feel as well, or?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a funny mix, right? You get people retiring to St. Helens, so there's a bit of an older demographic as well. Then you've got this surfy community also, and you've got quite a few artists coming in there, whether they're painters, musicians, doing arts and crafts, using local like seaweed, using glass, sea glass. So there's a lot going on. Things like there's people getting in doing yoga and all sorts of, that sort of funky stuff, which is like a bit of a hippie feel going on. And it's a great little community. I think there's somebody there that sort of aligns with what you're doing or the pastimes that you have, that sort of thing. It's if you reach out, you can see on this, like the St. Helens notice board, people just reach out and say, "Hey, I'm doing this, and I'm interested in that." Is somebody, interested in the same thing? Can we get together and do something? And absolutely, you see the responses come back and say, "Hey, yeah, I'm interested in that. Let's get together and do it."
And tell us about Easy Tiger. It's a small brewery, but it's also it's far from just being a brewery as well. It's an interesting beast.
Absolutely. So it is a tiny brewery. Absolutely. But the whole venue, Easy Tiger, is this diverse hospitality offering. So because of the wide demographic we've just talked about a little bit there, we want to make something for most people. We know you can't do it for everybody, but you can try and make a space, build a space for the community, like a central hub for the community, that there's something a little bit for everybody happening there. So we started in the end of June 2023 with a 48-seat boutique cinema. So
there was an existing cinema.
It was sort of. The room was there.
Yeah.
We were going to pull it out as part of the demolition to make way for the rest of the multifaceted venue. And we decided to keep it. But it was in really bad way, and there was no way you could open it as a cinema. It was a pretty much homemade job, right? So we've pulled together this thing with proper cinema seats, a proper cinema screen. It's actually an offcut from the IMAX at Darling Harbour, so it's perforated.
Oh, wow.
And there's these huge speakers mounted in behind it. It's a state-of-the-art digital sound and projection system. So that's where we started. We had no idea what we were doing. So none of us had run a cinema before, so that was a bit of a nightmare. But we worked it out, you know. We had a lot of help. Some people coming down, helping train us, and they were amazed that there was a group of people there trying to make this cinema work that had no idea about the cinema industry. We had no idea about films and how to pull them together and what it required. We learned, right?
Yep.
So there's the 48-seat boutique cinema. Then we went from there to open up a cafe, a bar, a beer garden. We've since roofed the beer garden with customer experience in mind, because trying to get people out of the weather. And direct sunlight too was an issue on a hot day, and reflection off the concrete.
And I guess so, and you've got the cinema, you've got live music, cafe, bar, beer garden, brewery. How do you manage it all? Like, what's the secret here? You're open all day, every day, except for Christmas. This seems like a pretty big task. Have you got a large team going on? Like, how's the management of it been going?
Yeah, absolutely right. So we don't want to be 100% owner. Managers or owner-operators, right? Because we don't want to be stuck in the business ourselves every hour of the day. Because we've got a life as well. I want to enjoy the fishing on the East Coast because, absolutely, I'm a pescatarian, so I want to be eating those fish that I catch. We've got a great team, so we've got a venue manager. So that's really a permanent day job, and so Ethan looks after that. And then we have supervisors on each of the shifts. So we've asked people that are mostly locals. We do have a few people that are passing through that we've put on, and we've given some extra responsibility to. But we have these people who take some extra responsibility, day, afternoon, night, to make sure that the venue runs well. We're only a phone call away. There's 3 of us based on the East Coast, so we're not far away if they need us. But we're there generally one of us every day, which is good, but it may not be the same person there every day. So we need to make sure we're in really good communication with each other, which we are. We're great friends. Most of us ended up at the same high school at one stage at different years, which is a bit amazing in itself. But I think that friendship, we're a real family in a way, and I think that works well.
What's the response been from the community? I mean, has it been embraced by the locals? Is it something tourists are travelling for?
Yeah. So look, the local support has been absolutely amazing, and we're really grateful for that. One thing we did early on is we used local trades. We wanted to use local trades to help put this venue together. And one of the benefits, the side benefits of that, was a real community around the tradespeople grew up out of it. They were really proud to say to their mates, to their family, acquaintances, go and have a look at Easy Tiger, get in there and use the space. Look at what we've helped create here. So that's awesome, getting those guys involved to start off with. And we see them all the time, the guys that were in there, building this place. It's absolutely fantastic. And, so they're great advocates for the business. A lot of locals come in and say this is one of the best things that's happened on the East Coast. We needed a space like this, somewhere to go, call home. We have guys who just come in and they've got a board game and they sit down with their mates and they'll play it for 4 or 5 hours. Just camped at Easy Tiger. It's just like, it's all, I mean, yeah, and they have some coffees and a bit of cake and some beer, and they'll stay for dinner.
And see a movie afterwards.
Yeah, and they can do all sorts of stuff. It's just like, it's just absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
And Tim, tell us a bit about CIBD. Like, what have you? Why'd you come, and have you enjoyed it?
Yeah, absolutely. I've been a member of the what was the IBD before the CIBD. Ever since I was at Bogues, I can't even remember how many years ago now.
Yep.
But I think that it's a great institute for learning and education. There's something always interesting in the magazines and the articles they send out, and on the website there's some great resources and that sort of thing. So that's one part of it. But when you get to a convention, you see all these people from the industry that you've known, maybe worked with in the past, been at a different brewery. You know, people move around a bit, obviously. You've caught up with somewhere else, but haven't had a chance to sit down and talk to them until you get some one-on-one time here at this sort of event. You know, we get a solid week, right, together, where you can catch up with people in the industry, share knowledge, just have a good time, share a beer.
Do a podcast.
Do a podcast, which is fantastic. You know, also, and then hear from people that come internationally as well, which is awesome, which often you don't get the opportunity. I did my summer school in Scotland, which was great, but some of those people in the UK I haven't seen for like 20 years. And you often get that opportunity at these sort of events if they travel to see them. You also get the opportunity to check in on your knowledge and how you're doing as well. So now, having stepped from a bigger brewery, it's a bit different because you've got access to a lot of other technical resources inside a larger company. But when you're doing craft brewing yourself, you know, yes, you've got your own experience, but it's also good to hear from others around, okay, am I on the right track for some of these things? And it's great to see that and hear it, and either affirm where you are or go, oh, you know what, I hadn't thought about that. You know, maybe I ought to consider that, or have a look at it and see how can I incorporate that into what I'm doing in craft brewery. One thing I'm interested about being here this time around is, you know, I'm getting older. And I'm planning my exit strategy. That doesn't mean I give up work full time or brewing full time, but it means that, you know, who is going to run the brewery later, you know, and that's starting now, right? I've got to get somebody trained up now. So it's what resources are here at and through and in partnership with the CIBD that can help me get an apprentice brewer trained up into that educational space that you move into taking over the brewing at Easy Tiger.
Yeah, I can imagine a venue in a regional town in Tasmania. It's probably a challenge to find qualified brewers and
well, yeah, absolutely. So and we also want to give somebody that is working for us an opportunity. Yeah. So we've got a young fellow at the moment who's keen. He works for us already. He's been doing a good job. So, you know, whether he wants to take that next step, we can start to explore that. And it'd be great to use a local person for that as well. So we're looking. So that's one of the reasons why I'm here as well, to take that back. I think it's great to hear that there's a UTAS and CIBD and the Ferment Tasmania collaboration going on. So maybe that's something we can get our person involved in.
Yeah, great. Yeah. Well, that's been fantastic, Tim, and thank you for sharing with the Craft Diplomat podcast listeners the Easy Tiger story, and it's certainly going on my bucket list for my next trip to Tassie.
We'll have to catch up in a couple of years, and hopefully you won't be retired then, and we'll chat over the history of it.
Yeah, awesome. No, that'd be great. I'm sure they won't be able to keep me out of the brewery. I'll probably come in and visit and give them some advice, whether they want it or not.
Yeah. Nice.
Thanks so much, Tim.
Cheers, guys. Thanks very much.
The Crafty Pint podcast is produced and edited by Matt Hoffman. You can get all your beer-related news and reviews on the Crafty Pint website, craftypint.com, and can stay up to date on future podcast episodes via our socials.
We wouldn't be able to produce the podcast or the website, events or festivals we run without the support of the beer industry, whether that's suppliers, bars, breweries or bottle shops. If you'd like to support the show or partner with the Crafty Pint in other ways, please reach out to Craig via the details in the show notes.
And if you're a beer lover who'd like to support what we do, you can join our exclusive club for beer lovers, the Crafty Cabal. Visit craftykabal.com for more.
And until next time, drink good beer.